The Chevrolet Vega, GM's most infamous failure? Welcome to Muscle Car Masters. Today, we're diving into one of GM's most infamous blunders, the Chevrolet Vega. Imagine the excitement in 1971 when Chevy promised an affordable, stylish, compact car that could compete with the Volkswagen Beetle. But what went so wrong under the hood that the Vega soon became known for clouds of blue smoke and endless engine problems? How did this revolutionary engine design turn into one of GM's largest failures, driving frustrated buyers away from American cars altogether? Today, we'll reveal the technical missteps, the cooling failures, and the cost-cutting that led to this disaster, and the problems you never knew about, or that are seldom discussed, mostly because it was overshadowed by all the other problems. It's the air cleaner. Have you ever heard stories about the Vega or known someone who owned one? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories of American muscle cars. The ambitious beginnings. Imagine it's the early 1970s, and American consumers are craving a stylish, affordable, compact car to compete with the Volkswagen Beetle. Enter the Chevrolet Vega, GM's bold answer to this demand, introduced with fanfare in 1971. On paper, the Vega was an attractive prospect. Priced competitively and promising innovation, it aimed to lead buyers up GM's Sloan ladder, progressing from Chevrolet to Cadillac. But despite its promising debut, the Vega's most ambitious feature, its engine, would soon reveal itself as one of GM's largest failures. So, what happened under the hood that transformed the Vega from a star into a pariah among American cars? The Vega's engine was designed to be revolutionary. GM equipped it with a 2.3-liter inline-four engine, featuring a new, high-silicon aluminum block without the standard iron cylinder liners used in other engines of the time. Developed alongside Reynolds aluminum, this alloy, A390, was thought to be an engineering marvel, creating a hard-wearing surface for the pistons to move against without added weight or cost. But this decision, driven by cost saving, would prove to be a critical misstep. Without cylinder liners, the Vega's engine became prone to rapid wear, as scuffing and heat damage would eventually mar its surface. Another striking choice was pairing the aluminum block with a cast-iron head. This combination created a mismatch of thermal expansion rates, especially dangerous in an engine that already ran hot due to its undersized cooling system. When the engine inevitably overheated, the aluminum expanded faster than the cast iron, causing the head gasket to fail, oil and coolant to mix, and ultimately leaving the engine warped beyond easy repair. GM's choice to skip essential components like cylinder liners and a more robust cooling system was supposed to save money, yet it only compounded the engine's fragility. Initially, GM claimed that the aluminum block was so efficient at dissipating heat that a large radiator wasn't needed, but this idea quickly unraveled. Early Vega models had a radiator barely a foot in size, holding an inadequate amount of coolant. Without a coolant recovery tank, any overflow was lost, making the engine vulnerable to repeated overheating. So, in an attempt to create an innovative, cost-effective compact, GM had sacrificed reliability. The Vega's engine, once marketed as a breakthrough in American automotive engineering, would soon be known as one of the worst GM engines of its time. Aluminum block and cylinder scuffing. At the core of this disaster was the decision to use an innovative but unproven aluminum block without the traditional cast-iron cylinder liners. The theory? By using an alloy called A390 with 17% silicon, the cylinder walls would be hard enough to withstand wear from the pistons without needing liners. But while luxury brands like Porsche succeeded with similar technology, GM's approach was poorly executed. Imagine starting up your car on a cold winter morning. In the Vega, This simple act was often the beginning of the end for the engine. Without cylinder liners, the aluminum cylinder walls were vulnerable to scuffing, especially before the oil fully circulated. This scuffing quickly wore down the cylinder bores, leading to oil burning and, eventually, clouds of blue smoke billowing from the tailpipe, an embarrassing signature of the Vega. But GM's missteps didn't stop there. Even with clear signs of premature wear during development, GM forged ahead without enough testing. Owners soon discovered that, unlike engines with traditional iron liners, scuffed cylinders in the Vega's aluminum block couldn't simply be repaired. The entire engine was essentially disposable. Freestanding cylinder design. Not only that, one of the Vega's most infamous design flaws was its freestanding cylinder walls. Imagine this: the cylinders in the engine block, instead of being reinforced and securely supported, were practically floating within the aluminum block. Why would GM do this? The goal was to cut weight and simplify production. But this unorthodox design would become a structural nightmare. The Vega's freestanding cylinders lacked the rigidity found in more conventional designs, such as GM's tried-and-true Chevy 350 engine. In the Vega, every up-and-down movement of the pistons caused the cylinders to slightly flex and shift, creating tiny but critical misalignments with every stroke. This constant movement placed immense stress on the head gasket, which sat between the aluminum block and the cast-iron head, a combination already prone to expanding at different rates under heat. With these cylinders shifting around, head gasket failures became inevitable, leading to leaks, overheating, and even total engine failure. Cooling system shortcomings. What about the cooling system of the Chevrolet Vega? The Chevrolet Vega's cooling system was nothing short of a disaster, and it's a prime reason this engine became one of GM's largest failures. Right from the start, GM made the shocking decision to equip the Vega with a minuscule radiator, measuring just 12 by 12 inches. This tiny radiator simply couldn't handle the engine's heat output, especially during extended drives. And here's where things go from bad to worse. Early Vega models didn't even come with a coolant recovery tank. What was GM thinking? Initially, they believed the aluminum engine could disperse heat so efficiently that it might not need a radiator at all. But after overheating incidents during testing, they added this undersized radiator. When the engine heated up and coolant expanded, it was simply dumped onto the ground, leading to rapid overheating if the coolant wasn't constantly topped up. Unlike in tests where engineers routinely checked fluids, real-world drivers didn't always monitor coolant levels. Soon, overheating became a common issue, leading to blown head gaskets, warped blocks, and engine failure. The problems didn't stop there. The radiator was also positioned too low, below the engine's cylinder head, which further hampered coolant circulation and contributed to excessive heat buildup. Overheating wasn't just a minor inconvenience, it was catastrophic. With no cylinder liners, once the aluminum block suffered scuffing or warping, repairs were nearly impossible. By 1973, GM began equipping all Vegas with a coolant recovery system, but by then, the Vega had earned a reputation for failure. Oil consumption and exhaust smoke. The Vega's reputation didn't just suffer from overheating, it was also plagued by excessive oil consumption and clouds of blue exhaust smoke. But what caused this? Much of it can be traced back to one of the most basic yet fatal flaws in the Vega's design: the valve stem seals. These seals would harden, crack, and eventually fail, allowing oil to leak directly into the combustion chamber. The result? Rapid oil loss, constant refills, and of course, that signature blue smoke pouring out of the tailpipe. And it wasn't just the seals that were to blame. The unique aluminum engine block, built without traditional iron liners, was another key factor. As the poorly cooled engine overheated, the soft aluminum cylinders would scuff, causing further oil leakage and wear on the piston rings. This excessive wear only worsened the engine's oil-burning problem, leading many Vega owners to complain about burning through oil almost as quickly as gasoline. Some owners even found themselves topping off the oil nearly every time they filled up with gas. For buyers, this was more than just an inconvenience. It was an embarrassment and a costly hassle that led to widespread frustration. With every puff of blue smoke, the Vega's image as one of the worst GM engines solidified, leaving many to question whether the automaker had rushed its design. The air cleaner. The Chevrolet Vega wasn't just plagued by engine design flaws. GM also managed to turn a simple maintenance task into a frustrating ordeal. Why? Instead of the standard, easy-to-replace air filter design, GM made the Vega's air filter an expensive, throwaway unit. In most 1970s cars, the air filter sat in a two-piece housing that could be opened with a wing nut. But for the Vega, GM sealed the air filter inside a permanent metal housing, forcing owners to replace the entire assembly every time the filter needed changing. Imagine paying 3 or 4 times the usual price just to replace an air filter. This approach only added to the Vega's reputation as one of GM's largest failures. So why did GM choose this convoluted design? The likely answer is cost-cutting. The sealed housing simplified the production line by reducing assembly steps. However, for owners, it meant added hassle and expense. Many frustrated drivers found themselves prying open the housing to fit a standard filter instead. This innovative design did nothing but make the Vega an even bigger headache for consumers. GM's response and its impact on consumer trust. As the issues with the Vega's engine began piling up, GM scrambled to salvage the car's reputation. Their initial response was slow, only equipping some models with a coolant recovery tank by mid-1972, more than a year after the Vega's debut. But even then, this fix wasn't applied across the board. Only Vegas, with the optional L11 engine or air conditioning, received it. By 1973, GM finally made this a standard feature and added a coolant warning light. But these measures came far too late for many buyers who'd already faced overheating and costly repairs. In a desperate bid to rebuild consumer trust, GM rolled out the Dura-built version of the Vega engine in 1976. This revised model featured upgraded cooling passages and improved valve stem seals to curb oil consumption. To prove the durability of this redesign, GM put the Dura-built through a grueling 60,000-mile, 60-day non-stop test in Death Valley, California, ultimately offering an impressive 60,000-mile warranty to back it up. Yet, for countless former Vega owners, the damage had already been done. The Vega's engine issues, combined with recalls and rust problems, marked one of the largest failures in GM's history. Many buyers, frustrated and disillusioned, swore off American cars altogether, with the Vega representing what they saw as a pattern of cutting corners at the consumer's expense. Despite GM's attempts to rectify the situation, the Vega became known as the worst GM engine of its era, a cautionary tale in automotive history and a turning point in consumer trust. The Chevrolet Vega was supposed to redefine the American compact car, but its engine flaws left a permanent mark on GM's reputation. From scuffed cylinders to relentless overheating, this story of ambition turning into failure offers a powerful lesson in automotive history. Do you think GM could have saved the Vega if they'd taken more time to test the engine properly? Or was this failure inevitable? Share your thoughts below. And if you're passionate about classic cars and the legends and lessons behind them, hit subscribe and join the Muscle Car Masters community. Let's keep the conversation going on the engines that shaped and sometimes shook the history of American muscle cars.